what we are going to do today is discuss various themes, various takeaways within Bhagavad Gita for us to apply in our day-to-day life and reduce our own stress levels. So stress, as it is defined in management books, is individual response to a particular situation. How I respond to a particular situation determines my stress. There is a beautiful story about two blind persons. One stumbles, and every time he stumbles, he curses God. That why didn't you give me eyes? Then there is another blind person. Whenever he stumbles, he thanks God. That thanks my sins are getting washed away. So it is totally up to us. How do we perceive a particular situation and adjust accordingly? Interpret the situation and then just take it in a way where it doesn't result in any negative experience within us. It's very easy. If you are on road, if you are anywhere, suffering is going to happen all the time. Somebody can shout at you, somebody can bang your car or bike. All these things are going to happen all the time. But those events are very small. The duration of the event is very small. Some stranger might come on the road and start arguing with you, and he might be an illiterate person, might hurt your feelings. But what will happen is that 2-minute incidents, you'll keep thinking about it for hours. And that's where, how do we ensure? Science of yoga will help you. That whole day you will keep thinking, but the morning or evening when you do yoga, it will give you feeling of betterment. It will give you feeling of relaxation. But how about having an attitude where you do not even collect the stress? There are two things. One is you collect the stress and release it through science of yoga, asana, pranayama, meditation and all. Another is your attitude is so robust that you do not pick up the stress at face value itself. Beautiful story about Lord Buddha. Once he was deep in meditation and somebody came and spat on him. He opened his eyes and he said, "What do you want to say? What else do you want to say?" The person was hurt. He tried to insult Buddha, but when Buddha was so calm in his response, there was no expression of negativity in him. The person felt very bad. Whole night he could not sleep. Next day he came to Buddha again and he apologized. Buddha said, "Don't worry, I might have hurt you sometime in past. Now our account is settled." So this is how philosophy of yoga can play a critical role in our lives. We are living in a very difficult situation right now. We are living in a situation where, like most of us, spend considerable amount of time at work, around 10 to 12 hours at work. Home is just few hours and few active hours, other hours are in sleeping. So actual time of interaction at home is very less. But maximum amount of time you spend is at office. And that is the place where, especially for individuals, it becomes very important to have a very robust attitude. Whatever is office for us today is Dharmashetra, Kurukshetra for Arjuna. And that's how we'll try to relate. He is also on duty, we are also on duty when we are working. The difference is, in those days, there was not so much technology. Diversification was not so much. Multiple geos are there today. Dynamism is required today. So there are so many complex factors in our life that unless we have a shield that is protecting us all the time, we are going to fall down. Because it's going to hit us someday. You pick up industry. Let's say most of the industry which are very stress-oriented industries where a lot of brain-related work is required, little physical activity is involved. So such jobs, most of the stress is during 30 to 40. That's the period when people at early age become victims of major diseases. So what we'll do is, we will now take up the theme of Bhagavad Gita and we'll go chapter by chapter. We'll see how much we can cover today, and then in next Sunday session we'll continue covering the rest of the time. So where does first chapter, first verse of Bhagavad Gita is Dharmashetra Kurukshetra Samveta Yudsava Mamaka Pandavascheva Kim Kurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra asks Sanjay, Dharmkshetra Kurukshetre Samveta Yutsava assembled for fighting Mamka. Mamka means my sons. And this my is the root cause of problem for whole episode of Mahabharata. Whole story of Mahabharata, if it was not my, it would have been a different situation. There was first theme is that Duryodhana was so much throne oriented that he was totally blinded by the greed to get the throne. Don't think about anything. All he wanted was throne by hook or crook. It's destiny that you are born in certain situation. It is a result of whatever pious or other karmas you did in past births. You start life in a certain manner in this world. Whether you are born to a son of a blind king who could have been king had he not been blind, but this is destiny. This is what has been there. So now, not accepting the destiny at the face value and trying to challenge it and just trying to be very, very throne oriented, like following a very wrong path. Let's talk about this throne orientation in detail. Sometimes throne sits on filth, and sometimes filth sits on throne. People generally perceive throne as something great, but throne doesn't come without any price. So people who are managing at the top, they know how much stressful sometimes it becomes when managing certain situations. So there is this beautiful book with 7 surprises by Michael Porter. It says there are 7 surprises. Even as a CEO, it's difficult to know what's going on. There's so many stakeholders in the organization. You are talking to analysts, you are now talking to shareholders, board members, government, constituencies, politicians, everyone. All the time you are flooded with information. Whatever you do, it spreads instantly and it gets amplified. Everything is monitored. But while you are a CEO, you are still not boss. You are still not boss. Boss is board members. While CEO carries the objective of meeting shareholders' objectives, but that's not always the objective. The objective is long-term results of the organization. And then CEO cannot afford to get sucked in by the corporate job. He has to balance it well in terms of balancing work life. So there are a lot of challenges as a CEO. So whatever is king in those days is CEO today. And that's where throne orientation is one of the very, very dangerous path to move on. It's not that we are not looking at the final goal, but the goal has to be different. Idea is that action, when it is achievement oriented. See, when you are working, if you are working specifically for a position that this is where I have to reach, then if you don't reach for some reason, then there is a lot of stress in you. If you reach, then also you have to manage a lot of stuff. So either way, reaching top is not easy, and maintaining top is also very difficult. So what matters most is how do we enjoy our action most without worrying about achievements. Be happy with doing our job in the best possible way. That's where not trying to be very throne oriented. Even if you look at it from academic perspective, we all tried in our schools. Having ambition of 90% doesn't work. Don't get it always 90%. You get what finally happens that day. And sometimes you prepare very well for one subject, but somehow the paper is very difficult for that. You don't prepare well for one subject, but paper is very easy. So it's combination of various factors which determines your outcome. It's not one. So there are beautiful management theories also, which says that there is a contingency theory, which says that the leaders, they have their own leadership style, and that leadership style can be effective in one situation, it may not be effective in other situation. Fiedler's contingency theory says that leadership effectiveness is a combination of style of the leader and characteristics of the environment he works in. So if we know that whatever we are doing in a particular organization is not an individual effort, it's a collective, collaborative effort. That's what one of the 7 habits in Stephen Covey is: collaborative effort, collaboration. We work together, that's how we get the results. So if anybody becomes too much throne oriented, that's like chances of setting yourself for failures are higher. Pick up an organization, and let's say in any sizable organization, you'll find, let's say, 100 VPs. Interview all the 100 VPs. You ask them, what's your vision in life? Most of them will say, I want to be the CEO of the company. Now look at the actual result. What will happen? During their entire career ahead, only few times CEO will change. So out of so many of them, only few will get opportunity. But since others had this ambition or had this throne orientation of becoming a CEO, at some time it will take toll on them. So that's first thing. Try to be action oriented rather than achievement or throne oriented. I do not dare to advance an inch. I would prefer to retire a foot. I do not dare to be a host. I prefer to be a guest. So this is a person who has fought many wars. After fighting so many wars, his conclusion is, it's better to retire few feet than advancing few inches. Better to be a guest than a host. Host is one who initiates the war. So in this case, Duryodhana is one who is responsible for initiating the war. So second takeaway for us is avoid initiation of conflict. Whenever it is opportunity for us to ignore something, to forgive something, I think that's the way to move on. Getting stuck and getting into conflict, from the time you leave your home for office, get on road, there are so many opportunities to get into conflict. Right from the auto wala who doesn't give you side, right from the security guy who is at the gate, and right from coming inside to people talking loudly on phone, and there are so many opportunities for us to get into conflict. Best approach is to avoid all the conflicts. Having said that, avoiding conflict is applied only to those areas which are not related to your action. In this case, Arjuna also tried to avoid the conflict, but avoiding conflict when you are on duty, on action, that is time you have to follow the dharma. And that's where third takeaway for us is that whatever situation you are in today, you have to blame yourself. Superior people of olden times, they will credit others for all their success, they'll blame themselves for failures. For whatever is right, they will give credit to others. For whatever is wrong, they blame themselves. That's what happens with Arjuna. He says, Na kankshe vijayam Krishna, na cha rajyam sukhani cha, kimnu rajyena govinda, kim bhogir jivitena va. Why? I do not desire kingdom, I do not desire all these pleasures. For all those people for whom I covet all these kingdom and pleasures, they are standing against me in the war. Why should I fight? So that's the tendency. He gets totally driven by the compassion, that the thought of seeing all the people, all his relatives, all his friends, all his teachers standing on the other side, and thought of engaging in war with them was so difficult a thought for him. He thought it's better to withdraw. Dashtvevam sajanam Krishna yutsum samupastitam sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha purishushyati vepatuscha sharire me rom harshascha jayate gandivam sansade hastak tukchaye paridayate. Seeing the sight of my kins and relatives, my skin is burning, my hair is standing, I am not able to stand. And having said all this, he tries to get away from the war. He says, and then it's always style of individuals. Whenever it's an intellectual person's style. Arjuna also does the same thing. He says that if we kill our relatives, we will incur sin. If we incur sin, we will live in hell for many years. So there is always some theory. Intellectual or intelligent person will not come out of a situation just like that. He will use a way. He will use a caveat. saying, okay, this is the reason I am going out. So that's how Arjun also says the same thing. That Utsanya Kul Dharmanam Manushyanam Janardana Narke Niyatam Vato Bhavati Dhanushushama. So by killing all the people, I have to live in hell for many years. So better than living in hell, let me withdraw from this fight. So 3 themes from the first chapter to summarize. First is not good idea to be throne oriented, because there are so many factors which play role in one being successful or one being able to reach at highest level. Second is avoid conflict at all situations. Third is you are responsible for your state, whatever situation we are. Like Arjun blames himself and try to get away from the situation. While getting away from the situation is not good idea, but at least one theme is there which is for all of us to take, is that if the tree is not producing fruits, we should investigate, go back into past and see, probably we didn't sow the right seeds. If we sow neem seeds, it will not produce mango fruit. Very simple. So if we are not producing right seeds, right fruits, that means somewhere in past we have not done right job. So always try to blame yourself. And what we are trying to achieve by blaming ourselves is not that we become a weaker person. It requires a lot of strength to blame yourself and stand up in public and say, yes, I take the responsibility. It's my mistake. But by doing that once, you become so conscious about your actions that you know you will have to accept it. That's your style. Since you have to accept it, you do not want to get into this situation. But people who try to get away from whatever wrong things they have done and always looking for scapegoats, they will always think about the same way to get out. So their focus and their concentration will reduce over the time, because they know their art of finding a scapegoat is always there. But the one who always takes blame on himself will always be very, very cautious. So that's about blaming yourself.